Ladies and gentlemen, imagine for a moment you're walking through your day, surrounded by people, living your life, yet there's a nagging feeling that something isn't quite right. You can't put your finger on it, but there's a weight you can't shake, a shadow you can't see, but it's there, lurking, controlling, influencing you. Now, picture this. What if the thing that's holding you back, the thing that's preventing you from reaching your full potential, isn't an external force at all? What if it's something you've been living with unknowingly for years? What if I told you that you might be living with a demon? Before you dismiss this as some eerie tale or a metaphor too far-fetched to grasp, I ask you to consider this. Demons aren't always supernatural creatures with horns and fangs. Sometimes they are thoughts that spiral out of control, habits that drag us deeper into despair, and people who wear a mask of kindness while feeding off our energy and joy. Yes, demons can take many forms. They are the inner voices that tell us we aren't good enough. The deep-set fears that make us doubt every decision, every action, and every relationship. They are the toxic habits we can't seem to break, no matter how hard we try. They are the people who suck the life out of us, leaving us drained, unsure, and broken. But the most dangerous demon of all is the one that operates in the shadows, unseen and unnoticed. These demons are stealthy. They don't announce themselves with thunder or storm. They quietly seep into our lives, shaping our thoughts, our moods, and our behaviors. And far too often, we allow them to stay, unaware that they are taking control of our lives. I ask you, how many times have you stayed in a toxic relationship because you believed you couldn't do better? How many times have you silenced your own voice to avoid confrontation, to keep the peace, or to hold onto a false sense of security? How many times have you allowed self-doubt to steal your dreams, telling you that you're not worthy of success, love, or happiness? The first step in breaking free from these demons is awareness. You need to see them for what they are. If you never recognize the grip they have on your life, you'll continue living in the shadows, never reaching the heights you're capable of. You'll keep giving up pieces of yourself to things and people that do not deserve your time or energy. And once you recognize these demons, once you identify the negative patterns, the toxic influences, and the internal struggles, you can confront them, you can fight back, you can take control of your life. But remember, this isn't easy. Breaking free from these demons is one of the hardest battles you'll ever face. It takes courage, strength, and most importantly, self-compassion. But I assure you, it's a battle worth fighting. You are not meant to live in fear, doubt, or under the shadow of negativity. You are not meant to be bound by the invisible chains of a life you didn't choose. So ask yourself, are you unknowingly living with a demon? If so, it's time to face it, confront it, and release yourself from its grip. It's time to reclaim your life, your peace, and your power. The power to break free is within you. The choice is yours. We often think of demons as monstrous external beings, something supernatural that lurks in the dark, threatening us with their malevolent presence. However, the true nature of a demon isn't always external. In fact, many of the most insidious demons we face are born from within. These are the internal struggles, the negative thoughts, the fears and destructive habits that, though invisible, can profoundly shape our lives. The demons within us are not always easy to recognize. They don't roar or appear in terrifying forms, but they quietly infiltrate our minds, influencing our behaviors, attitudes, and decisions. These are the emotional struggles that seem to control our lives, often without our conscious awareness. These inner demons thrive on self-doubt, insecurity, and negative thought patterns. They feed off our weaknesses, amplifying them until they become central to our existence. At their core, the demons within are often manifestations of fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of not being good enough. These fears lead to crippling self-doubt, leaving us unsure of our abilities and potential. They create barriers, preventing us from taking risks, pursuing our dreams, or stepping into new opportunities. The demon of fear convinces us that we are incapable of achieving greatness or deserving of success. Over time, this internalized fear erodes our confidence, leading us to settle for less than what we are truly capable of achieving. This inner demon doesn't just live in our thoughts, it also controls our actions. When we doubt ourselves, we avoid challenges that might push us beyond our comfort zones. We procrastinate, delaying important decisions because we are paralyzed by the thought that we may fail or fall short of expectations. Even when opportunities arise, we hesitate, unsure whether we're capable of seizing them. The demon feeds on this hesitation, further reinforcing the belief that we are not good enough. The impact of these demons extends beyond our self-worth and ambitions. They often show up in our relationships as well. A demon of insecurity can cause us to question the intentions of those around us, leading to jealousy, fear of abandonment, or emotional distance. Instead of building strong, healthy connections with others, we may become trapped in a cycle of mistrust and anxiety, which further isolates us from the support and love we need. Sometimes the demons within us are not just abstract fears, but also deeply ingrained habits or ways of thinking. These are the toxic behaviors we struggle to break free from, even when we know they are detrimental to our well-being. This could be a habit of self-sabotage, where we undermine our own progress out of fear or a lack of self-worth. It might be perfectionism, where we strive for impossible standards, setting ourselves up for failure by never feeling good enough. These demons create a never-ending cycle of frustration, where we feel stuck, unable to move forward or make lasting changes in our lives. Mental health struggles like anxiety and depression are prime examples of how these internal demons manifest. These conditions may not always be visible to others, but they can be deeply debilitating for those who live with them. They often tell us that we are alone, that no one can understand our pain, and that there is no way out. The demon of anxiety can make even the most routine tasks seem overwhelming, while depression can create a sense of hopelessness that dulls our ability to feel joy even in the happiest of moments. These demons isolate us, making it hard to seek help or even acknowledge the need for support. One of the most insidious aspects of these internal demons is that they often go unnoticed until they've already taken control. At first, their influence may be subtle, like a whisper in the back of our minds. But over time, they grow stronger, louder, and more pervasive. We start to believe their lies, and they begin to define our reality. What was once a passing thought becomes a firmly entrenched belief, and before we know it, we are living our lives under the weight of these invisible forces. The good news, however, is that these demons do not have to control us forever. The first step in reclaiming power over them is awareness. Recognizing that we are living with these inner demons is the most important part of the process. Once we bring them into the light and face them head on, we begin the journey of healing. The key is to replace fear with understanding, to challenge those negative thoughts, and to develop healthier habits that support our well-being. Breaking free from these demons is not an easy or quick process. It requires patience, persistence, and often external support. But the moment we begin to confront them, we take back control of our lives. We stop being driven by fear and self-doubt and start living with intention, embracing our true potential through self-reflection, therapy, and developing new coping strategies. We can create space for healing and growth, gradually silencing the internal demons that once held us captive. Ultimately, the internal demons we face are not invincible. They may be powerful, but they are not permanent. With awareness, action, and support, we can transform them from enemies into lessons. Lessons that teach us about our strength, resilience, and capacity for growth. We don't have to live in fear of the demons within us. Instead, we can choose to confront them, break free from their hold, and create a life of freedom, joy, and empowerment. Demons often carry a symbolic meaning in the context of our struggles and personal challenges. However, the most dangerous demons are those we cannot see. Those invisible forces that exert control over us without us realizing it. These invisible influences can be far more destructive because they act in the background of our lives, quietly steering our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without our conscious awareness. One of the most prominent forms of invisible influence is the power of our thoughts. Thoughts, both conscious and unconscious, can shape the way we view the world, ourselves, and others. We often assume that we are in control of our thoughts, but many of them arise from deep-rooted beliefs and experiences that we may not even be fully aware of. For instance, someone who has grown up in an environment filled with criticism might carry a belief that they are unworthy of love or success. This belief becomes so ingrained that it no longer requires conscious thought to influence their actions. They may avoid opportunities for growth, sabotaging their success, because their internal dialogue constantly reminds them that they are not good enough. These invisible thoughts can also manifest in negative patterns of behavior. We often find ourselves engaging in actions that are not aligned with our best interests, even when we are aware of the consequences. The voice in our head tells us to procrastinate, avoid confrontation, or stay in a toxic relationship, even when we know it's unhealthy. These actions are driven by deeper fears, anxieties, or beliefs that we may not even be aware of. We might struggle to break these patterns because the underlying causes are hidden beneath layers of denial, self-deception, or repression. And because these patterns are ingrained, they seem like normal behaviors to us, even though they are destructive. Similarly, the demons of invisible influence can also take shape in the form of emotional triggers. These triggers can be tied to past experiences, traumas, unresolved conflicts, or unmet needs that resurface in our present lives. We might find ourselves reacting disproportionately to a situation because something about it reminds us of an event or person from our past. For example, a person who was abandoned in childhood might have an emotional response to perceived rejection, even if it's minor. This invisible trigger causes them to behave in ways that are irrational or extreme, but they may not recognize the underlying cause. These emotional triggers often control our reactions, leaving us feeling helpless and out of control, even when we logically understand the situation is not as dire as it seems. Another form of invisible influence is the impact of societal and cultural conditioning. The expectations placed upon us by society, family, and friends can shape our identity in ways that we are not fully aware of. For instance, someone might feel immense pressure to achieve a certain level of success or conform to particular social norms, even if those standards don't align with their own values or desires. They might push themselves to succeed in a career they don't love, or maintain relationships that drain their energy simply because they believe it's what they are supposed to do. These societal expectations can become so ingrained that they operate on an unconscious level, influencing decisions and creating a sense of inadequacy or dissatisfaction when we don't meet them. The influence of others can also operate as an invisible demon. We often underestimate the power of those around us, whether it's a controlling partner, a critical family member, or a toxic friend. Their words, attitudes, and actions can subtly undermine our confidence and sense of self-worth. The constant negativity or manipulation from these individuals can convince us that their perception of us is the truth. We might find ourselves changing our behavior to fit their expectations, or sacrificing our own happiness to appease them. This invisible control erodes our sense of identity, leaving us trapped in unhealthy dynamics that drain our emotional energy. Moreover, the invisible demons of stress, anxiety, and self-doubt can have a profound effect on our physical and mental health. Chronic stress can be especially dangerous because it doesn't always manifest immediately. Over time, the pressure we feel from unacknowledged stressors can lead to burnout, illness, or depression. Similarly, anxiety operates as an invisible force that dominates our thoughts and actions. It causes us to worry about things that may never happen and often keeps us stuck in a cycle of fear and avoidance. This constant anxiety can limit our capacity for joy and peace, leaving us feeling tense and disconnected from the present moment. The most dangerous aspect of these invisible influences is that we often don't notice them until they have already shaped our lives in ways that no longer serve us. They don't announce themselves with flashing lights or warning bells. Instead, they sneak into our lives subtly, appearing as everyday thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that we simply accept as part of our existence. Over time, their influence becomes so deeply embedded in our psyche that we mistake it for reality, losing touch with our authentic selves. However, recognizing the presence of these invisible demons is the first step in breaking free from their control. It requires self-awareness, paying attention to the patterns in our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. It means questioning why we react the way we do, why we hold certain beliefs, and why we continue to engage in destructive patterns. Only by acknowledging the invisible forces at play in our lives can we begin to make conscious choices and reclaim control over our destiny. Through introspection, therapy, and support from others, we can slowly unravel these hidden influences, freeing ourselves from their grip and creating a more empowered, authentic life. Awareness is often the key to unlocking transformation in our lives, especially when it comes to confronting the invisible demons that shape our experiences. The process of becoming aware of these internal forces, the negative thought patterns, toxic habits, and emotional triggers may be difficult, but it is the most important step in breaking free from their influence. Many people live much of their lives unknowingly under the sway of these demons, not realizing how they silently dictate decisions and emotions. Without awareness, these forces remain hidden, acting like puppeteers, pulling the strings behind the scenes and we continue to react to life without fully understanding why. Once we bring awareness to our internal world, we can start to identify the subtle ways these demons operate. Awareness is not just about recognizing the obvious issues, like toxic relationships or habits that harm us, but also about diving deeper into the unseen parts of our psyche, those parts that influence us without our permission. For example, someone who has been raised in a judgmental or critical environment may carry an inner critic that relentlessly points out their flaws, even in situations where there is no real threat to their self-worth. Without being aware of this inner critic, they might internalize its voice as truth, feeling constantly inadequate or fearful of judgment. But when they become aware of this voice and recognize it for what it is, an internalized pattern from the past, they begin to see how it shapes their present experiences. Awareness allows us to step back and observe ourselves with a critical eye, examining why we act or feel a certain way. It means recognizing the thoughts that rise within us in response to situations, people, or even our own feelings. For example, when faced with a new opportunity, we may automatically think, "I'm not good enough," or "this will never work out." These thoughts arise from internalized beliefs, often stemming from past failures, disappointments, or fears of rejection. However, by being aware of these thoughts, we can start to challenge them and question their validity. We begin to ask ourselves, is this thought actually true? Is it based on evidence, or is it just fear speaking? In many cases, people are so accustomed to their negative thought patterns or toxic behaviors that they don't recognize how harmful they are. They become comfortable in their discomfort, thinking that these patterns are simply a part of who they are. For instance, someone who constantly sacrifices their own needs to please others may not recognize that they are overextending themselves and depleting their energy. They may believe that pleasing others is the right thing to do, or that saying no will lead to rejection or conflict. However, once they become aware of this dynamic and understand that it stems from a fear of disapproval or a lack of boundaries, they can begin to shift their behavior and set healthier limits. Awareness also helps us recognize the way our past experiences shape our current reality. The internal demons we struggle with are often deeply rooted in past experiences, traumas, unmet needs, or unresolved emotions. These past events may not be at the forefront of our minds, but they can influence our thoughts and behaviors in powerful ways. For example, someone who has been through an abusive relationship may unknowingly carry the scars of that experience, manifesting in trust issues or fear of vulnerability in future relationships. Without awareness, these unresolved issues continue to dictate their interactions, leading to patterns of fear or avoidance. But once they become aware of the impact of their past on their present, they can begin to process these experiences, heal, and create healthier relationships going forward. The process of gaining awareness requires us to be honest with ourselves and to take a hard look at the areas of our lives that are holding us back. It means acknowledging the ways in which we contribute to our own suffering, whether it's through self-sabotage, negative thinking, or remaining in toxic situations. Self-awareness is a courageous act. It requires us to confront the parts of ourselves we may not like, or those parts we've hidden away out of fear, shame, or guilt. But only through this confrontation can we begin to free ourselves from the grip of these internal demons. Once we gain awareness, the real work begins. Awareness alone is not enough to break free from the influence of these demons. It must be coupled with intentional action. For example, recognizing that we have an inner critic is a powerful first step. but changing the way we respond to that critic requires effort and practice. This might mean replacing self-judgment with self-compassion or reframing negative thoughts with more constructive ones. It may involve actively challenging the internalized beliefs that have shaped our worldview, but without the first step of awareness, these efforts would not be possible. Awareness also enables us to make more conscious choices about how we respond to situations and emotions. Instead of reacting automatically, driven by fear or habit, we can respond thoughtfully and intentionally. For instance, if we become aware that we have a tendency to overreact in stressful situations, we can pause before reacting and choose a more measured response. This shift in behavior takes practice, but awareness gives us the space to make those changes. Moreover, awareness provides the foundation for growth and healing. By recognizing the ways in which we've been held back, we open ourselves up to the possibility of change. We begin to understand that we don't have to remain stuck in the same patterns of thinking or behaving. Awareness allows us to see our potential beyond the limitations that once seemed insurmountable. It gives us the clarity to make decisions that are aligned with our true desires and values, rather than out of fear, insecurity, or old patterns. In this journey of self-awareness, we learn to listen to ourselves more deeply and tune into the subtle cues that guide us toward healing. We recognize that the demons we face are not permanent, and that by bringing them into the light of consciousness, we begin the process of diminishing their power over us. The more aware we become, the less we allow these invisible forces to dictate our choices, and the more we reclaim the freedom to live our lives authentically and with purpose. So through awareness, we shift from being passive recipients of our thoughts and emotions to active participants in creating the lives we truly desire. One of the most powerful and harmful forms of an invisible demon is the toxic relationship. These types of relationships can drain us emotionally, manipulate our thoughts, and impose negativity on our well-being in ways we may not always recognize at first. The impact of toxic relationships can be so insidious that we often don't see the damage being done until it's too late. They create an environment where manipulation, control, and emotional depletion thrive, leaving us feeling trapped and powerless. Toxic relationships may come from romantic partners, friends, family members, or colleagues. Anyone who plays a significant role in our lives and whose influence becomes unhealthy. The most insidious aspect of toxic relationships is that they often begin subtly. At first, a person may appear loving, caring, or charming, but over time, their behavior shifts in a way that becomes emotionally draining. A toxic partner might initially express affection, but later use manipulation to control or guilt trip you into doing things that benefit them, all while pretending to be concerned for your well-being. They may create a cycle of highs and lows, where moments of love and appreciation are followed by criticism, neglect, or emotional withdrawal. This creates a sense of uncertainty, making you constantly seek their approval or love, all while feeling confused about the true nature of the relationship. These relationships thrive on manipulation. A toxic individual may manipulate your emotions by making you feel guilty for standing up for yourself or asserting your needs. They may play on your insecurities, telling you that you are too sensitive or that your feelings are irrational, slowly eroding your sense of self. Over time, you begin to question your own perceptions and wonder if maybe you're the one who's in the wrong. The toxic person may use this doubt to manipulate you further, ensuring that they stay in control of the situation and your emotions. Another hallmark of toxic relationships is the way they create emotional dependency. Over time, you may begin to feel like you cannot live without the toxic person's approval or presence in your life. This is especially true in romantic relationships, where one partner may withhold affection or create a sense of emotional chaos, leaving the other person desperate for love or validation. The cycle of emotional highs and lows keeps you hooked, even when the relationship is ultimately harmful. You may rationalize their bad behavior, convincing yourself that things will get better or that you deserve the mistreatment. This creates a toxic environment where one person's emotional needs take priority over the others, leading you constantly sacrificing your own happiness and peace for the sake of maintaining the relationship. In family dynamics, toxic relationships can be just as damaging. A parent or sibling may impose unrealistic expectations, criticize your choices, or create a sense of guilt when you try to live life on your own terms. Over time, these negative influences can wear away at your self-confidence and independence, making it difficult to pursue your own goals or stand up for your own needs. The guilt and shame they impose may feel like a constant weight, and the sense of obligation to maintain the relationship may prevent you from seeing that it's actually causing harm. Toxic relationships can also come from friendships, where one person is constantly taking, leaving you drained and exhausted while giving little or nothing in return. In these types of relationships, you may feel like you are always the one to support, listen, and make sacrifices, while the other person remains emotionally distant or selfish. This imbalance creates feelings of resentment and frustration, but can be difficult to address because of the fear of losing the friendship or being accused of being selfish. In the end, these toxic friendships undermine your well-being, leaving you feeling undervalued and isolated. The emotional toll of toxic relationships extends far beyond just the immediate effects on mood or energy levels. Over time, these relationships can contribute to deeper issues such as anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. Constantly being in a state of emotional turmoil or uncertainty erodes our mental health, making it harder to trust ourselves and others. The continuous cycle of manipulation and emotional highs and lows can create a sense of mental exhaustion, where even the simplest tasks become overwhelming. The constant self-doubt and fear of abandonment can make it difficult to find peace or stability in your own thoughts. Toxic relationships can also damage your ability to trust others. When someone repeatedly betrays your trust or manipulates your emotions, it becomes difficult to believe that others have your best interests at heart. This can make it hard to form healthy relationships in the future, as the damage from past toxic connections clouds your judgment and creates barriers to intimacy. It's not uncommon for people who have experienced toxic relationships to become overly guarded, emotionally distant, or afraid of being hurt again. This fear can prevent them from opening up to others and can isolate them from the supportive relationships they deserve. The difficulty of leaving toxic relationships is another reason they are so dangerous. Often these relationships create a false sense of attachment, making it feel like you cannot live without the person even when their behavior is destructive. The fear of loneliness, judgment, or the unknown can keep you trapped, even when you know deep down that the relationship is unhealthy. It can take years to recognize that a relationship is toxic, and even longer to muster the courage to leave it. However, leaving is often the only way to regain control of your life, restore your sense of self-worth, and break free from the emotional manipulation that has kept you chained. Ultimately, toxic relationships are like invisible demons, acting quietly and often unnoticed until they have deeply affected our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. The damage may not always be immediately apparent, but over time it can strip us of our confidence, independence, and joy. Recognizing the toxic elements in these relationships is crucial in order to break free and reclaim control over our lives. Leaving a toxic relationship is not easy, but it is necessary for personal growth, healing, and happiness. It requires strength, self-love, and the belief that you deserve better than to live under the control of another person's negativity and manipulation. By cutting ties with these emotional parasites, you can begin to rebuild a life that is centered around healthy, nurturing relationships and a greater sense of self-respect. One of the most pervasive, invisible demons we face is the demon of fear and self-doubt. These two forces often work hand in hand, quietly eroding our sense of confidence and potential, making it nearly impossible for us to fully realize our abilities or pursue our deepest desires. Fear, in its many forms, acts as a paralyzing force, keeping us from taking action, making decisions, or stepping outside of our comfort zones. It distorts our perception of reality, convincing us that something is far worse than it actually is. Self-doubt, on the other hand, is the internal voice that questions our worth, abilities, and value, making us believe that we are not good enough, capable enough, or deserving enough to achieve our goals or dreams. Fear often operates in the background of our lives, influencing the choices we make and the opportunities we pass up. It can manifest as a fear of failure, fear of rejection, or fear of the unknown. This fear paralyzes us, convincing us that staying in a familiar, even uncomfortable situation is safer than taking a risk and venturing into uncharted territory. For example, a person might want to start a new business or change careers, but the fear of failing prevents them from taking the first step. They might imagine worst-case scenarios, losing money, facing ridicule, or not being able to support themselves, and as a result, they remain stuck in a job they don't enjoy or a life that doesn't fulfill them. The power of fear is that it often feels more real than the reality itself. It creates mental barriers that make it seem impossible to move forward, even though in many cases the fear is rooted in exaggerated thoughts rather than facts. Fear distorts our perception, making the unknown appear dangerous and overwhelming. It convinces us that we are not equipped to handle challenges, or that the risk of failure is too great. But more often than not, the things we fear the most are not as catastrophic as our minds imagine them to be. When we finally confront our fears, we often find that they were nothing more than exaggerated thoughts. But by then, the damage has already been done. The opportunity has been missed, the action has not been taken, and we are left with the regret of what could have been. Self-doubt reinforces fear by feeding into our insecurities and weaknesses. It whispers to us that we are not good enough, or that we don't have what it takes to succeed. This inner voice is relentless, constantly reminding us of past failures or reinforcing negative beliefs that have been ingrained in us over the years. For someone who has failed in the past, self-doubt can become a constant companion, telling them that they will never be successful or that they don't deserve to try again. Self-doubt is not just about a lack of confidence. It is an internalized belief that we are fundamentally flawed, inadequate, or unworthy of success or happiness. It leads to perfectionism, overthinking, and a crippling fear of making mistakes. Together, fear and self-doubt create a vicious cycle that prevents us from moving forward. Fear tells us to avoid taking risks, while self-doubt convinces us that we are incapable of handling success or failure. These demons can cause us to play small, to remain in safe but unfulfilling situations, and to limit our potential. They prevent us from stepping outside of our comfort zones, where growth and transformation happen. We stay in toxic relationships, unfulfilling jobs, or stuck in unhealthy habits because the fear of change and the doubt in our ability to succeed hold us back from making bold moves. Even when we do take action, fear and self-doubt can undermine our efforts. For example, someone might gather the courage to apply for a new job or ask for a promotion, only to be consumed with doubt and fear afterward. They might second-guess their qualifications, worry about how they will be perceived, or fear rejection. This can lead to procrastination or self-sabotage, where they undermine their chances by failing to follow through on opportunities. Fear of judgment, of making mistakes, or of not being accepted can prevent us from fully embracing our potential, leaving us stuck in a cycle of inaction and self-limitation. One of the most dangerous aspects of fear and self-doubt is that they can make us forget our true strengths and capabilities. They overshadow the qualities that make us unique and valuable. Fear convinces us that we don't have the ability to succeed, while self-doubt reinforces the idea that we are not worthy of success or happiness. Over time, this creates a false narrative about who we are, and we start to believe that we are destined for failure or mediocrity. We forget that we have the resilience to overcome challenges, the creativity to solve problems, and the ability to grow through adversity. Fear and self-doubt blind us to our own power and potential, trapping us in a limiting mindset that prevents us from reaching our goals. The key to overcoming fear and self-doubt is not to eliminate them entirely, but to confront them and take action in spite of them. The fear will never completely disappear, and the self-doubt may always be there in some form, but we can learn to manage these emotions and not allow them to dictate our lives. The first step is to recognize the presence of these demons and acknowledge how they have been affecting us. From there, we can start to challenge the validity of the fears and doubts that arise, questioning their basis and reframing our thoughts. Instead of believing the narrative that we are not good enough or that we will fail, we can replace those thoughts with empowering ones, that we are capable. Overcoming fear and self-doubt also requires taking small, incremental steps outside of our comfort zone. By taking action, even if it's just a small step at a time, we begin to prove to ourselves that we are capable of handling whatever comes our way. Each success, no matter how small, builds our confidence and weakens the grip that fear and self-doubt have over us. By consistently pushing through the discomfort and uncertainty, we begin to create new patterns of thinking and behavior that support our growth and success. With time, we learn that fear and self-doubt are not invincible demons, but temporary obstacles that can be overcome with courage, persistence, and self-compassion. We often forget how powerful our thoughts are and how deeply they shape our realities. Our thoughts are not just fleeting ideas. They are the foundation of the lives we build. The way we think about ourselves, others, and the world around us determines the trajectory of our emotions, actions, and ultimately our experiences. Negative thinking, particularly, can be one of the most subtle but damaging demons we unknowingly live with. These thoughts, often in the form of persistent self-criticism, pessimism, or catastrophizing, can distort our perception of reality and prevent us from moving forward in life. The influence of negative thinking often begins in the form of habitual thought patterns. We may not even recognize that we are engaging in these thoughts, as they become automatic and almost second nature. It might start with an inner voice that constantly criticizes our every move, calling us incompetent, unattractive, or unworthy. Over time, this inner dialogue becomes a part of our identity. We begin to internalize these thoughts, believing them to be true, and they begin to shape how we view ourselves and the world. What starts as a simple, perhaps innocent thought can snowball into a full-blown belief that we are not enough or that we are doomed to failure. For example, if you fail at something, your negative thinking might immediately tell you, "I'll never be good enough," or "I always mess things up." This mindset leads to a fixed perception of failure, making it harder to see challenges as opportunities for growth. At its core, negative thinking distorts our ability to see the truth. It paints situations in an overly negative light, even when there's no real evidence to support such extreme thoughts. For example, a person might receive constructive criticism at work and immediately believe that they are on the verge of being fired or that their entire career is in jeopardy. The fear and anxiety generated by these negative thoughts can paralyze them, preventing them from responding with resilience or seeking solutions. Similarly, someone might avoid social situations due to the belief that they will be judged or that they won't fit in, even though there's no basis for this belief. These patterns of thinking skew our reality, often making us perceive things as worse than they really are. Negative thinking also breeds self-doubt and a lack of confidence. The more we engage in negative self-talk, the more we chip away at our self-esteem. We become so focused on our flaws and perceived shortcomings that we fail to recognize our strengths or achievements. This constant barrage of negativity can keep us from pursuing our goals or stepping outside of our comfort zone. It's common to feel paralyzed by self-doubt, believing that we are not worthy of success or happiness, or that we are destined to fail. This kind of thinking leads to a fixed mindset, where we see ourselves as incapable of growth or change, leading us to avoid challenges or opportunities for improvement. One of the most damaging aspects of negative thinking is that it often keeps us trapped in a cycle of inaction. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, and a deep sense of inadequacy lead us to procrastinate or avoid taking risks altogether. We convince ourselves that things will never change or that we'll never be able to achieve our goals, so we stop trying. This creates a sense of helplessness, where we feel like we're stuck in our current situation, unable to break free. It also reinforces feelings of hopelessness, making it harder to believe that things can improve even when opportunities are available. Furthermore, negative thinking tends to influence how we perceive others and how we engage with the world. When we are in a negative state of mind, we often assume the worst in others, misinterpreting their actions or words through the lens of our own fears and insecurities. We might read too much into an innocent comment, assuming it's a criticism, or we might distance ourselves from others, believing that they don't like us or that we don't belong. This negative interpretation of social situations can lead to isolation as we retreat from relationships or avoid new ones altogether. Instead of seeing the world as a place filled with potential and opportunity, we see it as threatening and unwelcoming. The long-term effects of negative thinking are profound. Chronic negative thinking has been linked to mental health issues such as depression and anxiety. It can also contribute to physical ailments, as constant stress and emotional strain take a toll on our bodies. The more we stay trapped in negative thought patterns, the more we reinforce the belief that things will never improve. This sense of helplessness leads to a diminished quality of life, where joy and satisfaction are overshadowed by fear, worry, and self-criticism. However, negative thinking is not something we have to passively accept. The key to breaking free from it lies in awareness and intentional effort. The first step is recognizing the negative thoughts as they arise, understanding that they are not facts, but merely distorted perceptions. Once we become aware of these thoughts, we can challenge them. For example, if you think, "I'm not good enough to succeed," ask yourself, what evidence do I have to support that? Often, when we stop and question these thoughts, we realize that they are based on assumptions, past experiences, or fears, rather than objective truths. Reframing negative thoughts is a powerful tool. Instead of thinking, "I'm going to fail," reframe it to, "I may face challenges, but I am capable of overcoming them." By changing the narrative in our minds, we start to shift our perspective and begin to see new possibilities. Another powerful strategy is practicing self-compassion. Instead of beating ourselves up for making mistakes, we can choose to treat ourselves with kindness and understanding. Embracing a growth mindset is also crucial in overcoming negative thinking. Instead of seeing failures as confirmation of our inadequacy, we can view them as learning experiences that help us grow. Every challenge is an opportunity to improve, and by adopting this mindset, we can transform our approach to setbacks. Negative thinking often goes unnoticed and unchecked, but it is one of the most destructive forces in our lives. It keeps us trapped in cycles of self-doubt, fear, and inaction, preventing us from reaching our full potential. However, by recognizing and challenging these thoughts, we can begin to dismantle the invisible demons that control our lives. Through awareness, reframing, and self-compassion, we can break free from negative thinking and create a more empowering and positive reality. In conclusion, we all carry invisible demons that shape our lives in ways we may not even recognize. Whether it's toxic relationships, fear, self-doubt, or negative thinking, these forces subtly influence our decisions, actions, and ultimately our happiness. The most powerful step we can take in overcoming these demons is awareness, the ability to recognize the negative influences and patterns that hold us back. By confronting these challenges head-on, whether it's through breaking free from toxic relationships, confronting our fears, changing the way we think, or having the courage to act, we reclaim the power over our own lives. Remember, you are capable, deserving, and strong enough to overcome anything that stands in your way. Good luck on your journey of self-awareness and growth. May you find the strength to face and conquer your inner demons, and in doing so, build a life that reflects your true potential. Thank you for your time and attention today. Let us all walk forward with the knowledge that the power to change is in our hands.